In order to be multiplied, you have to already be multiplying so he can cause you to multiply more.
Then you realize that the inheritance is not something that's on the outside of you, but it's something that's already been imparted.
In one move, that thing can be cast out of you and ordered never to return again.
This is God's Love with Dr. Pierre Bennett.
And now it happened, David and his men came to Ziklag. On the third day that the Amalekites had invaded the south, and Ziklag, attacked Ziklag and burned it with fire, and had taken captive the women and those who were there, from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but carried them away and went their way. And I want to set it up for you. This was David's camp. This was David's people. There were David's possessions. There was David's family. It was his wife, his kids. But not only his wife and his kids and his possessions and his kingdom, but all the people that were around David. So all of his soldiers, all of his mighty men of valor, all of the wonderful people that looked to him as great friends and as a leader, all of them had been devastated because everything had been taken from them and burned up in one move. What would you do if you were one of David's men? What would you do? And I speak this on today for Father's Day, certainly to the women of God, but to the men of God, because sometimes the pressure as a man is a little bit more severe. Sometimes the pressure to make the right decision or to go in the right direction or to use wisdom or to stand in your masculine strength that God has given you, sometimes it can be a little bit more perplexing. Added with the spiritual expectation and perhaps the physical impartation of something known as testosterone, sometimes we may not want to make the choice that would be the best based on the way we process things. I would imagine that David was heated. I can imagine how he felt if he went back to his camp and his wife was gone and his kids were gone and the camp was burned up. All of his belongings were gone, but not only that, all of his friends, all of the people that trusted him were also equally, if not more, devastated. Can you imagine men and women of God losing everything and losing everything for the people around you? But can you imagine men of God, how absolutely impotent he must have felt physically and spiritually, not being able to do anything about it at this time? The camp was burned. The enemies were gone. What would you do? Would you get stuck right there? Would you be angry? Would you hold on to it? Would you be fearful? Would you get stuck in that place? Would you lash out? Would you be mad at God? So David and his men came to the city, and there it was, burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters had been taken captive. I'm not even sure that taken captive at that moment in time would be better than if they were killed. I'm not sure if you can imagine your wife and your kids being imprisoned by the enemy. And then not only that, the wife and kids of all of the people around you that trusted you for leadership and guidance. Then David and the people, the word goes on to say, David and the people were with him, and they lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more power to weep. These were warriors, and they cried like babies until they didn't have any more tears. They were warriors, and they cried until they didn't have any more energy left. They were warriors, and they cried themselves probably to sleep like an infant would. They cried until they couldn't cry anymore. What would you do? What would you do? David was greatly distressed because the two wives had been taken captive. But not only that, the people that trusted him and loved him, his good friends, his subjects, the people that he was loyal to, they wanted to stone him. They wanted to kill him. They wanted to kill him because they blamed him. They blamed him for their loss. So imagine the added pressure that David was experiencing. He was grieving for his own wife and kids, and I believe he loved his wife Abigail. I believe he loved his kids. I believe he was also grieving about their loss. Hundreds of men and families and wives and kids. The distress of having everything burnt up, and now they want to kill him. What would you do then? What would you do? I question myself what my initial reaction would be. My personality sometimes my natural personality would be to maybe bark back a little bit. God works with me on that every day. I would like to think that immediately I would go to my knees and cry out to the Savior, but I don't know if that would be my immediate reaction. If the people that were my subjects were crying out and wanted to kill me, our human reaction would be to want to strike back and kill them. It's quiet. Hey, crickets. I need some honest saints in here. Can I just get one or two just to say, Amen. So God, what you're saying is you have him in a position where everything was gone. Family, not just family, wife, kids, many different dimensions here, belongings, prosperity, everything was burned up. Friends, the friends' families, and all of their things associated. So the honor and the respect, all of the things that would come with walking in the kingly realm were devastated in one move. Everything you knew is good and honorable. All of your joy in one move looked like it was wiped out. What would you do? Some of us, sometimes, if we have one little mishap or two little mishaps or one little hiccup, we're freaking out. What would you do if everything was snatched away in one move? This was his equivalent of the Job experience. The difference is Job stayed in that place for a while. For a while. He eventually came out and got blessed. What I've learned, though, about seeking God and knowing God and listening to God is that you can get to a place to where you don't have to be subject to linear time. If everything is an ascension on a vertical plane, up and down, instead of linear, well, God, if all I have to do is just see you and seek you and get to the next dimension, then I can circumvent what should be natural time in order to get where I need to be. Let me try to put it a different way. So God, if I had one need for a miracle, and I can believe you for that one miracle, well, what if I had a need for multiple miracles? What if I had a need to believe you for the complete restoration of total devastation? I don't know. That might be a little bit too much for our faith to stretch to, or maybe that's too hard to understand, that the one that made everything and the one that is everything and the one that runs everything and the one that blessed you with life and the one that imparts you into you every day and the one that gives you more wisdom and more understanding and blesses you with abundance and prosperity and joy and peace, it might be too much to comprehend that he could do it in one move. But wasn't he the one that allowed the total devastation anyway? See, if everything is a reflection, and this is how he's been working on me for the last couple of weeks. If everything is a reflection, if you look at the glass as half full or half empty, the outcome is based on what you can receive at that time. Amen. So God, if you're only allowing me to see the reference point being negative, then really what you're trying to do is get me to change my perspective so I can see the positive. If it looks like a curse, all I have to do is change my perspective to see the blessing. You're the blessing maker, God. If I'm walking with you, I have to always see the blessing. I have to always know that you're going to bless me. I have to always know that if I stay with you, you've got me no matter what. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. So then really, God, if you bless me, catch it, to be in a situation to where I need multiple miracles, if you bless me to be in a situation that looks totally desolate and totally devastating, then really what you're doing is setting me up for the biggest blessing of my life. All I have to do is catch it. Catch it. What would you do? I can tell you what all of you would do. Eventually, you'd seek God. You would have to. You would have no choice because the situation is death. You can't stay in death because of what's in you. The choice would be, how quickly would you seek God? How quickly would you cry out to him? How quickly would you trust him to show you the opposite of what it looks like? Amen. How quickly? The children of Israel died in the desert place after going round and round and round for 40 years. What started out to be 2 million ended up with only 2. So basically, God, if I want to catch it and I want to walk into the blessing, I want to walk into the promise, then really I have to be 1 in a million. All right. Amen. Amen. Look at your neighbor and say, I'm 1 in a million. 1 in a million. Stop and think about it. That's why he's made you so different, so unique, so exclusive. He would have to in order to make you 1 in a million. So 1 in a million, you have a slightly different mindset. You have a different way of thinking about things and processing things. What would you do? What would you do? The word goes on to say, David was deeply distressed, greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him because the soul of all the people was grieved. Corporately, they were all grieving. They were all crying out. They were all in pain. And sometimes the pain of the people around you can cause a positive or a negative reaction. If their pain is making them lash out at you, our human nature is to smack them back. When really God is saying is, if you can hear the pain in their soul, all you have to do is seek me, go above the situation, trust me for the outcome. What would you do? What would you do? The word goes on to say, but David, I love this part. David strengthened himself in the Lord, his God. The Lord, his God. He made it personal. The Lord, his God. That special place with him, that special dimension in him, that secret room that he had just for him and God. That special intimacy. Not just God, because he's everything, not just the all sovereign almighty, not just the creator of the universe, not even just the Messiah, but the Lord, his special place, his special connection, his divine intimacy, his special friendship with the one that made everything. Amen. He had to find a way to pull on his heart. God, I need a favor. God, I know you're my Lord, my Savior. You're this, you're that, you're this, and certainly I give you all of the honor for that. But right now, God, I need something special from you. Need something special, God. It's personal now. And David said to the priests, please bring me the ephod here to me. And I have to read the definition to you of what an ephod is. At the time, it's a linen apron worn in ancient Hebrews, worn by ancient Hebrews. A special vest or vestment for the high priest. So it's a special garment for the high priest, the head priest, the head man of God, if you will. But it was deeper than that. It was an instrument of priestly divination. It was a tangible garment that would represent the true presence and the power of God. Now, this is Old Testament. This was before Jesus the Christ came on this earthly plane. So now we have something that is even more tangible. That is the presence and the sweetness of Jesus the Christ. That is the intimacy of our friendship and our fellowship with him. That is his miracle working power through that which is called resurrection power. That is the ability to do all things by believing in him. He came that you might not have death, but you might have life and have it more abundantly. So really, God, what you're saying is if I can pull on that tangible garment, if I can pull on that thing which is the manifestation of your power, if I can pull on my intimacy and my friendship with my Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ, then all I have to do is believe in him because of the intimacy I have with him and the knowledge of his resurrection power over and over and over again. As he's delivered me from one situation to another situation to another situation and blessed me over and over and over again to the place to now I can believe him for multiple miracles. I can believe him to change the atmosphere in one move. I can believe him for healing and deliverance and abundance and prosperity and joy and perfect health all the days of my life and love and happiness and everything that would be good and sweet and honorable and blessed because he's my God. He's my Lord. He's my Messiah. He is the resurrection. He is the tangible essence of the full-blown power of God. With him, all things are possible. Nothing is impossible. But for me, he's my friend. He's my friend. What would you do? If you needed a favor from a friend, would you pull on him? Would you ask him? What if he wasn't a really good friend? Would you ask him anyway? Would you be sure that he would do it if he wasn't a really good friend? Maybe. Then perhaps what you need to do is seek him more so that he becomes your really good friend. He's no respecter person. If he does it for this one, he can do it for that one. If he's done it for me, he can do it for you. He's my friend. So armed with that information, if he is your friend, then what would you do? What would you do? David went on and he inquired of the Lord, taking that thing that was a tangible asset, taking that thing that would represent the physical manifestation of his presence, his Shekinah glory, his love, his power. He went to God. He went to that intimate place with him. And David said, should I pursue this troop, God? I can imagine his prayer. God, it looks crazy. They took everything. They burned it up. They took my wife. They took my kids. They took my friends' wives, my subjects, everybody you have believing in me. Now they want to kill me, God. What should I do? In my mind, I could hear him because I would probably think this. God, in my mind, I want to pursue him. If you bless me, Lord, I can go get him. You made me a warrior. Show me what to do. But God, I just want to know, is that what you have me to do? Am I setting myself up for more? Which way, God? Tell me. I'll do what you tell me to do. Should I sit it out? Should I suck it up? Should I let it go? Or should I pursue them, God? Intimate conversation. I can imagine it was probably early in the morning before dawn. I can imagine David was probably laid out. I can imagine the sweetness of the fellowship. See, sometimes in the most devastating situations is when you have the sweetest fellowship with God. Sometimes all he's doing is giving you a reflection of what should have been because of what is. Oh, catch it. What you might miss if you don't seek him, what you might miss if you don't trust him to go to the next level, what you might miss if you don't listen. Should I pursue him, God? Is what he was saying. And I could imagine David was probably itching. He was a warrior. He led warriors. They took his wives. and they took his kids, and they burned his stuff, and they took his blood. I can't imagine. God, just make sure it's not me. I want to make sure it's not me in my human mindset, God. But if it's you, I want you to give me the power to light their tails on fire. By your power, God. See, you can reach a place of intimacy and fellowship and friendship with him. You don't have to fight your own battles. And if he sends you to fight a battle, he's sending you with him in you. Amen. You can't lose for winning. You can't lose for winning. What do you say, God? What would you do? What would you do? What would you do? Lost my page. Jump down to verse 11. Oh, by the way, the end of the sentence is, he said, should I pursue them? And God said, he said, should I pursue the troop? Shall I overtake them? It was two questions. And God answered them back. And he said, pursue them. For you shall surely overtake them. And without fail, recover all. Amen. All. So he received the divine instruction of what to do and how to do it. There's no greater feeling when you know you got an instruction from God. When you know not only do you get the instruction, you get the impartation. There's an empowerment when he gives you something like that. Doesn't matter which way it goes. And as a matter of fact, it gives you kind of a quiet confidence. You don't have to do a whole lot of talking anymore. You just receive your marching orders and watch him do his thing. Verse 11 says, as they went out to seek him, verse 11 says, they found an Egyptian in the field, and they brought him to David, and they gave him bread. They gave him some bread and some water, and this particular Egyptian hadn't had food in, I believe, 3 days or water. And because they brought him to him and they showed him kindness, he started to talk. And he was actually a slave of one of them, but he got sick, so they left him behind. Basically, they left him for dead. And David and his men basically gave him life. They showed compassion to this man, and as a result, he wanted to help them. So David said, can you show me where they are? And I'm closing in just a minute. Verse 15 says, David said to him, can you take me to this troop? And he said, if you swear to me that you won't kill me or turn me back over to them, I'll show you where they are. I'll show you where they are. I believe in his mind, he probably thought that David deserved to have his stuff back. He was probably also annoyed that his people actually left him for dead. But God used this man. Also, God can use anybody to do what he needs to do. Verse 16 says, and when he had brought him down, there they were spread over all the land, eating, drinking, and dancing, because of the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines. See, they made the description to kind of drag it out a little bit so you could get the whole picture. Remember, David was a warrior. He'd received his marching orders from God. Basically, God had given him permission to not only pursue him, but he said he was going to recover all. But not only did he bless him with a victory, he blessed him with a sweet victory. Yes. See, what would be more sweet for a warrior to roll up on somebody that had taken all their stuff, all their belongings, giving them complete devastation? Now, he knew he was going to recover all, but God made it so that he could savor the moment of the victory. They were dancing because of what they had taken from David. They were dancing because of the wives and the kids and the money, the belongings, what we would consider prosperity at that time, because of the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines and the land of Judah. David attacked them from twilight until the evening of the next day. David whooped on them all day and all night. I talk about a sweet victory. I think he whooped them until he got tired. Understand the victory? Understand the impartation. Understand the sweetness. I would imagine that David probably even asked for that as he went before God. He was a warrior. God bless me to recover all, but God, can you also give me about 18 hours to just whoop them until I get tired? I can almost hear the prayer. God, you've empowered me to be a warrior. Let me unleash these tactics on them for what they did, because they made themselves my enemy. Not a man of them escaped except for 400 young men who rode on camels and fled. So David recovered. What's that word? Somebody help me. Give me an Englishman. What? David recovered. David recovered. Look at your neighbor and say, David recovered all. And David rescued his 2 wives, and nothing of theirs was lacking, small or great, sons or daughters, spoil or anything which had been taken from them. In closing, David recovered all. Oh, you ought to give him a praise. So what I'm saying to you on this morning is whatever enemy God has allowed to be put in your path, anything that has been taken from you, whether it was recently or 20 years ago, anything that you've been struggling with, anything you feel like you missed out on, anything that you felt wasn't going to be returned to you, anything that you thought you had to be stuck with, any situation, any relationship, any area of lack, any area of needing a healing, anything that God has allowed the enemy to make you think that you missed or lost. God is saying to you on this morning, because of what you would do, because of what you would do, look at your neighbor and say, because of what you would do. And because you're at the place where he calls you friend, if you seek him for the tangible presence, which is Jesus the Christ, if you seek him with your whole heart and ask him, he says, pursue it and recover all.
In order to be multiplied, you have to already be multiplying so he can cause you to multiply more. Then you realize that the inheritance is not something that's on the outside of you, but it's something that's already been enlightened by his power.
In one move, that thing can be cast out of you and ordered never to return again.
This is God's Love with Dr. Pierre Bennett.